Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with the August 17th edition of the Mid-South Wrestling Review Series. We've got the almost entire run. We're going to add a few UWF episodes. I didn't find as much of the pre-December 81 stuff as I would have liked, but we are going to have some UWF episodes over the next few days as well. Hopefully get us up around 225 episodes or so in the total series. We've got over 1,000 audios from both modern day and old school wrestling, back when wrestling actually counted for something, in the next little while. Or already up, and we're going to add literally thousands of more this year. Anyway, Skandor Akbar introduces El Casario. Akbar is certainly a guy who has been probably the most damaging of managers in the area. Casario is a masked individual who does, brawling and kind of the martial arts thing. Oliver Humperdinck discusses Dick Murdoch and putting Murdoch out. Putting him out to pasture, so to speak, is basically the point of the promo. El Casario faces Mark Reagan in a very one-sided, well, at least partially one-sided affair, but again, with a new guy in the area, you need to do that. Like, I don't think there's a way that you don't do that. And of course, new individual for Akbar. Akbar kind of bouncing between two territories. He does the introduction for El Casario. Casario wearing kind of the regular street pants and he has some weapons. He's also doing a martial arts demonstration. Kicks through a board. I don't know if the board is broken. Why it takes two referees to hold a board, I don't know. But anyway, they end up doing the board break with the kick, but the kick looks about big enough to break an egg. They also do a punch through, and then Reagan kind of comes in and makes things go there. Obviously, Corsario over the next several months manages to do a lot of damage. Martial arts type stuff. Irish whip with a back kick, and ultimately goes for the cover. Pulls the man up, almost cockily so, and kind of making things go in a positive direction that way. Back chop by El Casario, and kind of goes for the kick under the chin, elbow to the top of the head, and Reagan comes back, hits a couple of chops. Casario does manage to come back with a shot of his own leapfrog, followed by a leaping back kick, and 1, 2, 3, there we go. Then there's an interview. Ted DiBiase basically debutizes Bob Sweetan, who I won't get into details. For anyone who wants to research it can research it, but he is less than a upstanding individual, done a lot of criminal things, a lot of illegal things, a lot of unkind things related to children and adults over the years. But anyway, he is debutized as the temporary, honorary, for lack of a better term, I guess, maybe, stand-in champion. DiBiase going back to Japan. DiBiase certainly makes a lot of money in Japan. Steve Williams is his tag team partner, and Williams and Sweetan face Nicholas, and I mean, ultimately Sweetan comes in, gets a couple of rather vicious arm bars there, and we kind of see the double team maneuvers. Doc pulling his opponent back into the middle of the ring. Doc managing to wait, and there's a tag off there. The other unnamed enhancement talent gets clubbed by Williams. Williams manages a almost a stun gun type maneuver, but turns that into a backbreaker. Sweetan comes back in off the ropes, does the jumping stomp, 1, 2, and ultimately gets a victory there off a jumping stomp. I don't know that that's necessarily what's needed, but Doc also tackles his opponent pretty aggressively after the match. And Nightmare versus Al Perez. Perez, of course, came into the territory pretty much a guy who is, I guess, unchallenged. Nightmare, obviously, former North American champion, and a guy that's a pretty big deal. Cyril Oliver Humperdinck makes a big deal out of the Nightmare's presence and all of that. Again, lots of deep arm drags and real basic stuff by Perez. Perez, one of my favorite guys that never really got a national run. He does show up in the NWA. He does show up in the WWF for a little bit, I think. Maybe doing like a couple of Madison Square Garden house shows and that, but never really gets the national run, Didal Perez, and it's bothersome because I think he had a lot more talent and charisma than he was allowed to show or given the opportunity to show. Anyway, Nightmare takes Perez into the buckle and without a doubt gets sent into the ropes. Big clothesline by the Nightmare and goes for the cover. Doesn't get all he wants on the cover anyway. Kicks off the arm, and ultimately Perez takes a couple of shots at his adversary, stays on the arm for several minutes, and then sends the man off, hits a flying forearm. Perez does not stay on this man well enough to go for a pinfall, however, and anyway, then we see the Nightmare load up the mask, hit a headbutt with the loaded mask, and of course Nightmare takes a victory off of that. Referee questioning it, but can't call what he doesn't see. Then we go to Pat Rose versus Lord Humongous, and obviously Humongous, a guy who, is certainly has his challenges and doesn't really get everything he wants on it. But anyway, Humongous, again, a guy who comes in, he's kind of clad out in all leather. He's kind of a little hard to understand the appeal of, other than the size, meaning he's kind of clad in just weird attire and a mask and all of that. But Lord Humongous is a guy that they do appreciate. He manages to brawl with his opponent, takes him down a little bit, picks him up, double goozle by the throat, and ultimately, hits a big military press. Doesn't get all he wants on the extension on it, but manages to get a victory anyway. Chokes out his opponent, and match is stopped from there. Then we go to Dundee and Little Tokyo versus Wendell Cooley and Little Coco. Obviously, midgets come through a couple times a year, and this kind of sets up Cooley and Dundee as potential adversaries for a while. The mixed tag nature of the match. The Dundee comes in. Coco manages to hit Dundee in the face and kind of, just the comedy spots there, no pun intended on the little. Cooley manages to take his man down and hold him due to some chin locks and the like. The little people get in the ring. Tokyo gets some martial arts shots and cheating where he can. Doesn't really care about the rules, but that's not a huge surprise, or shouldn't be. Dropkick under the chin by Little Coco. Coco takes he takes his liberty, so to speak, with Little Tokyo. Tokyo hits a couple of chops. Meanwhile, Dundee comes back in, tries to get his hands on the little person opponent, and eventually does. Hits a body slam after the referee, and an elbow drop after the referee has been put out. Little Tokyo basically says, "Let's finish him off." Goes for a couple of offensive maneuvers. Does Little Tokyo. Cooley comes back. Anyway, a dive off the top by one of the Fantastics, giving Little Coco the win over Bill Dundee. Technically, a little person beat a normal-sized person. This is not good for Dundee's career, but Dundee willing to do the comedy, understanding the business, that it's more about entertainment than anything else. Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert facing off against Brody Chase. I don't know how common the name Brody is in 1985, what with Bruiser Brody still being in his prime and alive and all that good stuff. He doesn't pass away till 88, 89. That's a big wonder to me, too, if Brody had ever done business with like the three big companies in the 90s had he survived. Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert still managing to go after his opponent pretty aggressively, up and over the hip by Gilbert. Gilbert tries to break things down as subtly as he can, cheating along the way. Awkward high knee and then a knee off the second rope by Gilbert gets him the win. The power of Jake Jake the Snake and the Barbarian is up next. They kind of show highlight videos there of those two, and then we close the show with Bill Dundee saying he wants revenge on Little Coco. He is unhappy that he was beaten by a little person, and he wants revenge. That's probably setting up some sort of house show program with Dundee and Little Coco for the week or two that follows. But we'll be back with more right after this.